Read anyone's mind, simple and secret techniques to instantly know what they think.
Audiobook, reading by Coleman Hudson, published by A1 Audiobook. Introduction, the most important skill you were never taught. Leo felt the familiar, warm rush of victory. He was standing in a glass-walled conference room 40 floors above the city, the presentation clicker still cool in his hand. Across the polished mahogany table, Mr. Davenport, the CEO of the firm they'd been courting for 6 months, was smiling. "Leo, this is brilliant work," Davenport said, his voice echoing the confident energy in the room. "Truly, your team has outdone itself." Leo beamed. His proposal was a masterwork of data, strategy, and creative vision. He had answered every question with precision, parried every objection with a well-researched counterpoint, and ended on a high note that had the junior executives nodding in vigorous agreement. As they all stood for the handshake, Davenport's praise continued. "We'll be in touch very soon. We love the proposal." Walking out of that building, Leo wasn't just confident, he was certain. He messaged his team, "It's a lock. Start prepping for kickoff." He treated himself to a steak dinner that night, replaying the highlights of his performance. The handshakes, the smiles, the explicit, undeniable words, "Brilliant work. We love it." 2 days later, an email landed in his inbox. The subject line was innocuous. "Following up." The body of the email was a single, polite paragraph. It thanked him for his time and commended the quality of his team's proposal. Then came the sentence that felt like a punch to the gut. "However, after careful consideration, we have decided to go in a different direction at this time." Leo stared at the screen, his mind racing. He read the words again and again. It didn't make any sense. A different direction? They loved it. He had seen it on their faces, heard it in their voices. He had shaken their hands. What had happened in the 48 hours between that triumphant handshake and this crushing rejection? Frustrated, he called a trusted mentor who knew Davenport's company. After Leo recounted the story, his mentor asked a simple question. "Leo, you heard what they said, but what did you see?" He paused. He had seen smiles, nods. But as he replayed the scene in his mind, other, smaller details surfaced. While Davenport was praising the creative vision, his eyes kept darting to his chief financial officer. He remembered the CFO, a quiet woman named Helen, wasn't smiling. She had her pen capped, her leather-bound notebook closed on the table, and when Davenport had said "brilliant work," she had given a slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head, a flicker of dissent that lasted less than a second. He remembered Davenport's smile was tight, that it never quite reached his eyes. Leo had heard the words, but he'd completely missed the truth. The CEO's words were a social courtesy. The CFO's micro-expression was the final verdict. Davenport wasn't lying. He was navigating an internal conflict. He did love the proposal, the truth in his words, but he was terrified of its budget, the truth in his anxious glances. He won the argument, but he lost the deal. He had read the room, but he had read it all wrong. The problem, the great disconnect. How often has this happened to you? Maybe not in a 40-story skyscraper, but in the quiet moments of your own life. You leave a job interview feeling like you nailed it, only to receive a generic rejection. You have a conversation with your spouse that seems fine, only to find them cold and distant hours later. You give a presentation and your boss says, "Good job," but you don't get the promotion. You thought things went well. You thought you were on the same page. You thought you were understood, but you weren't. In an age of hyperconnectivity, we are suffering from a profound and painful deficit of genuine understanding. We have more ways to communicate than ever before: texts, emails, DMs, video calls, and a dozen social media platforms, but we are more likely than ever to misinterpret, misjudge, and misunderstand one another. We live in a digital fog, bombarded by signals, but starved of meaning. We mistake hearing for listening and observation for insight. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. This understanding deficit is the silent culprit behind our biggest professional and personal failures. It's the reason brilliant ideas are shot down in meetings, why negotiations crumble at the final hour, why relationships fracture under the weight of unspoken needs, and why so many of us walk through the world feeling fundamentally alone and unseen. We assume that understanding people is an innate gift. You either have it or you don't.
You're either a people person or you're not. We try to guess what others are thinking, project our own feelings onto them, or worse, we just take everything at face value, like Leo did, hoping for the best. This is a book about why that approach is destined to fail. And it's a book that will give you a better one. The Promise, From Guesswork to Genuine Insight. What if you could walk into any room, a boardroom, a first date, a tense family dinner, and instantly grasp the unspoken dynamics at play? What if you could listen to your boss describe a new project and understand what she really wants beyond the corporate jargon she's using? What if you could notice the fleeting expression on your partner's face and know the right question to ask to unlock what they're truly feeling? What if you could sit across from a client, a customer, or an opponent and understand their deepest fears and motivations, allowing you to connect with them on a level they didn't expect? This is not about becoming a human lie detector or a manipulative mastermind. Tricks and tactics for manipulation are cheap and fleeting. They build transactions, not trust. This book is about something far more powerful and profound. It's about developing the skill of radical understanding. It's about learning to decode the signals people are constantly broadcasting, often unconsciously, so you can respond with genuine empathy, clarity, and confidence. The ability to accurately understand what others think and feel is the single most important and underrated skill for a successful and fulfilling life. It's a learnable skill, not a magical power. And like any skill, it requires a framework and practice. The roadmap, the SSS Framework. For years, I've studied, tested, and refined a simple, powerful method for decoding human behavior, drawn from the fields of neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and the real-world practices of FBI hostage negotiators, world-class therapists, and elite salespeople. I call it the SSS Framework, and it will be the backbone of our journey together. Reading minds isn't about one giant leap of intuition. It's about systematically looking at three distinct layers of communication. The surface, the what. This is the explicit layer, the words people say, their observable body language, their actions. It's the raw data. We'll learn how to see and hear this layer with stunning new clarity, moving beyond cliches to spot the tells that everyone else misses. The subtext, the why behind the what. This is the implicit layer, the meaning between the lines. It's found in tone of voice, in what's not said, in the emotional current running just beneath the conversation. This is what people mean, not just what they say. The source, the deep why. This is the core driver of all human behavior. It's the fundamental need, the core value, or the deep-seated fear that powers everything. Understanding someone's source is the ultimate key to predicting their behavior and connecting with them authentically. Throughout this book, we'll journey from the outside in. We'll start by mastering the surface, then learn to uncover the subtext, and finally, we'll reach the source. Each chapter will give you research-backed insights, memorable stories, and practical, actionable exercises you can apply immediately. Leo's story had a postscript. His failure became his obsession. He stopped focusing on what to say and started focusing on what he could see and hear. He learned to decode the unspoken language of the room. A year later, he didn't just win back Davenport's account. He became Davenport's most trusted strategic partner, all because he finally learned to read what was truly on his client's mind. You hold in your hands the same system that transformed his career and his relationships. This is your opportunity to stop guessing and start knowing. It's time to develop the one skill that changes everything. The era of guesswork is over. The age of understanding is about to begin. Let's get started.
Chapter 1. The End of Guesswork, Shifting from Mind Reader to Meaning Decoder. When I was 9 years old, I received the greatest gift a boy could ever ask for, a deluxe magic set. It came in a glossy red box with a picture of a magician in a tuxedo pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Inside was a treasure trove of plastic wonders, trick cards, disappearing coins, and a flimsy but official-looking magic wand. My favorite trick was called the Mind Reader. It involved 3 small colored cubes. The instructions said I could have a volunteer secretly pick a cube, hide it in their hand, and through sheer mental power, I would know which color they chose. The secret, of course, had nothing to do with mental power. A tiny, nearly invisible smudge on one side of the secretly chosen red cube was the tell. My first subject was my father. I performed the ritual with grave seriousness. "Think of the color," I commanded. Closing my eyes and pressing my fingertips to my temples, "I'm getting a signal. It's red." My dad opened his hand. It was the blue cube. I said, trying to maintain my composure. "The psychic energy in this room is weak. Let's try again." We tried again. I guessed red. He had the yellow one. My 9-year-old brain short-circuited. I had followed the instructions perfectly. I had the secret. Why wasn't it working? My father, seeing my frustration, finally let me in on his own trick. "I knew you were just looking for the red one, son," he said with a smile, so I decided to never pick it. My father hadn't just been a volunteer in my magic trick. He had been an active participant with his own thoughts, his own strategy, and his own agenda. I was so focused on my script and my secret trick that I failed to see what was actually happening. I was trying to read his mind, but he was playing a completely different game. That day, my career as a magician ended. But decades later, I realized that most of us are still doing the exact same thing in our daily lives. We walk into conversations armed with our own scripts, our own assumptions, and our own secret tricks for figuring people out, and we are repeatedly baffled when others don't behave the way we expect. We try to be mind readers, and we fail every single time. You are not a psychic. You are a decoder. Let's get one thing straight right here at the beginning. You will never read anyone's mind.
The idea that you can magically access the private, unfiltered stream of consciousness inside another person's head is a fantasy. It's a myth that sets us up for constant failure and frustration. Trying to be a mind reader is like trying to catch smoke with a net. It's an impossible task that leaves you with nothing but empty hands. This book is not going to teach you how to be a psychic. It's going to teach you something far more reliable and powerful. It's going to teach you how to be a meaning decoder. A mind reader tries to guess a secret. A meaning decoder observes the evidence and uncovers the truth. A mind reader relies on intuition and luck. A meaning decoder uses a system to interpret the data that is right in front of them. People are broadcasting information about their thoughts, feelings, and intentions all the time. The problem is we haven't been trained to see or hear it correctly. We're listening to the static, not the signal. Becoming a meaning decoder means shifting your entire approach. You stop asking, "What are they thinking?" and you start asking, "What are they revealing?" The brain's blind spot. Theory of mind. The primary tool we use to understand others is a cognitive function called theory of mind. It's the fundamental human ability to recognize that other people have beliefs, desires, and intentions that are different from our own. It's the understanding that the movie playing in your head is not the same one playing in theirs. We develop this skill as toddlers. It's why a child eventually learns to stop showing you their favorite cartoon when you're visibly upset, realizing that what makes them happy might not be what you need at that moment. For most of our lives, our theory of mind runs on autopilot. It's a piece of evolutionary software that helps us navigate the social world, form alliances, and avoid conflict. But here's the problem. Our autopilot is often flawed. It's lazy. It takes shortcuts. It uses our own feelings and experiences as the primary reference point. We project our own fears onto our boss, our own insecurities onto our partner, and our own hopes onto our children. We assume that if we presented a case logically, the other person must now think logically. We assume that because we value directness, others will appreciate our blunt feedback. Consciously improving your theory of mind is the first step to becoming a meaning decoder.
It means actively overriding that lazy autopilot and engaging with the reality of the other person's world. It's the difference between assuming you know the map and asking for directions. The negotiator's secret. Nowhere is the shift from mind reader to meaning decoder more critical than in a hostage negotiation. Guessing wrong doesn't just lose a deal, it can lose a life. Captain David Reynolds, a veteran FBI hostage negotiator, was once called to a scene where a man had lost his life savings in a business deal gone wrong and was now threatening to jump from a bridge. The local police on the scene were operating as mind readers. They were guessing what he wanted. "He's lost all his money," the lead officer told David. "He probably wants cash. Should we offer him money?" This is a classic mind-reading mistake. It's a guess based on the most obvious piece of information. David knew that guessing was a fool's game. He put on his headset and did something different. He didn't try to guess what was in the man's head. He started decoding the man's meaning. "It sounds like you've been through a lot," David started, his voice calm and even. "It sounds incredibly unfair." The man on the bridge, who had been shouting at the police, suddenly went quiet. He mumbled, "You have no idea." "You're right, I don't. Help me understand." For the next hour, David didn't offer solutions or make promises. He simply listened and decoded. The man kept saying things like, "I lost everything," and "It's all gone." A mind reader would hear, "I lost my money," but David, as a meaning decoder, heard something deeper. He noticed the man didn't just talk about the money, he talked about how he couldn't face his family. He said, "I can't even look my kids in the eye. I promised my wife I'd take care of them." David realized the source of the man's despair wasn't the loss of money, the surface problem. It was the loss of his identity as a provider and a father. The money was just a symbol of his perceived failure as a man. So David didn't offer him money. He offered him a path back to his identity. "It sounds like being a good father is the most important thing in the world to you," David said, labeling the man's core value. The man on the bridge broke down crying. "It is," he sobbed. "It's all I ever wanted to be." "Your kids don't need your money right now," David said softly. "They need their dad. Your wife needs her husband."
The single most important thing you can do to be that man for them is to walk off this bridge with me right now. The man surrendered peacefully a few minutes later. David didn't read his mind. He decoded his pain. He understood that the most important truths aren't shouted. They are hidden in plain sight, embedded in our patterns of speech, our emotional undertones, and the things we choose to talk about. This leads us to the foundational principle of this entire book. The foundational principle. All communication is a behavior, and all behavior has a purpose. People don't say things or do things by accident. Even a sigh, a glance away, or a sudden change in topic is a piece of behavioral data. These actions are designed, consciously or unconsciously, to achieve a goal. That goal might be to get an answer, to avoid a difficult topic, to seek approval, to assert dominance, to test for a reaction. The average person ignores this data. The mind reader misinterprets it. The meaning decoder collects it, analyzes it, and uses it to build an accurate picture of the other person's inner world. Your job isn't to be a psychic. Your job is to be a detective. The clues are always there. You just need to learn what to look for. Starting now, you will no longer be a passive audience member in your conversations. You will become an active observer, a curious scientist at the laboratory of human interaction. The first step is simple. You just have to decide to stop guessing and start seeing. Chapter in action, your first decoding mission. This isn't a book you just read, it's a skill you build. Let's start building right now with a simple, powerful 5-minute exercise. Find a laboratory. Go to a place where people are talking. A coffee shop, a park, or even the food court at the mall is perfect. Choose your subjects. Find 2 people engaged in a conversation. Don't choose a couple that's obviously fighting or a group that's roaring with laughter. Pick a normal, everyday conversation. Turn off the sound. You don't need to actually be deaf. Just observe them from a distance where you can't hear their words. If you're watching a video or TV, mute the sound. Your goal is to eliminate the words so you can focus on the other channels of information. Observe the dance. For 2 minutes, just watch. What is their posture like? Are they leaning in or leaning away? Who is doing most of the gesturing? Are their movements sharp and jerky or smooth and relaxed?
Does one person mirror the other's body language? Don't judge, just observe. Form a hypothesis. Based only on what you saw, what is the emotional tone of this conversation? Is it a friendly catch-up? A tense negotiation? Is one person trying to convince the other? Is one person bored? Write down your best guess. This simple exercise begins to train your brain to separate words from behavior and to see the rich layer of data that you have been ignoring your entire life. This is the first step towards seeing the surface, the first layer of the SSS framework we will dive into in the next chapter. Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. Stop being a mind reader. Trying to guess what's inside someone's head is a losing strategy. It leads to projection, assumption, and failure. Become a meaning decoder. Shift your goal from guessing to observing. Your mission is to decode the meaning behind the signals people are constantly sending. All behavior has a purpose. Every word, gesture, and silence is a piece of data. Nothing is random. Your job is to uncover the purpose behind the behavior. Override your autopilot. Your default theory of mind is lazy. Actively engage your curiosity to understand another person's unique perspective rather than assuming it's the same as yours. Decoding greater than guessing. True understanding comes not from a lucky guess, but from a systematic process of observing and interpreting communication, just as an FBI negotiator decodes a subject's true needs. Chapter 2. The Clear Lens. How to see past your own biases. Imagine you're a professional photographer on a once-in-a-lifetime assignment. You're in a remote, breathtaking landscape. The light is perfect, and a rare, magnificent creature has just appeared before you. You raise your camera to capture the shot that will define your career. You press the shutter. Later, when you look at the photo, your heart sinks. The image is blurry, distorted, and dull. The magnificent creature is just a fuzzy shape. The breathtaking landscape is a muted smudge. The shot is ruined. It wasn't the light. It wasn't the subject. The problem, you realized, was a single greasy thumbprint on your camera lens. This is the challenge we all face every time we try to understand another person. We're all looking at the world through a lens. That lens is our mind, our past experiences, our current mood, our deepest beliefs, and our ingrained assumptions. And most of the time, that lens is smudged with the fingerprints of our own biases. Before you can ever hope to decode another person with any accuracy, you must first learn to see, acknowledge, and clean your own lens. You can have the most sophisticated decoding techniques in the world, but if your perception is distorted, the information you receive will always be corrupted. Trying to understand others without first understanding your own biases is like trying to take a masterpiece photograph with a dirty lens. You're doomed to fail before you even begin. The autopilot brain and its dangerous shortcuts. Our brains are miraculous, but they are also incredibly lazy.
To conserve precious mental energy, the brain creates shortcuts, rules of thumb, and automatic patterns of thinking that allow us to navigate the world without having to analyze every single piece of information we encounter. Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman famously described these two modes of thinking as System 1 and System 2. System 1 is our autopilot brain. It's fast, intuitive, emotional, and unconscious. It's what you use to know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, to get a gut feeling about someone, or to swerve a car to avoid an obstacle. It operates automatically and quickly, with little or no effort and no sense of voluntary control. It's a brilliant survival mechanism, but it's also the source of most of our biases. It jumps to conclusions to save time. System 2 is our pilot brain. It's slow, deliberate, analytical, and conscious.
It's the thinking you use to solve a complex math problem, to compare two different products for a major purchase, or to fill out a tax form. System 2 is who we think we are, the rational, thoughtful decision maker. But this mode is lazy and gets tired easily. It's happy to let the autopilot, System 1, run the show whenever possible. When we interact with other people, our fast, intuitive System 1 is in charge most of the time. It uses past experiences and mental shortcuts to create an instant judgment. Is this person a friend or a foe? Are they competent or clueless? Do I trust them or not? These lightning-fast judgments feel true and right, but they are often based on flawed, incomplete, or totally irrelevant data. The key to seeing clearly is not to get rid of System 1. That's impossible, but to know when to slow down and consciously activate the thoughtful, analytical System 2. It's about learning to say, "Hold on, autopilot. Let me, the pilot, take the controls for a second." The ghost in the interview room. Brenda was a seasoned marketing director, known for her sharp instincts and for building high-performing teams. She was in the final round of interviews for a critical project manager role. The next candidate, a young man named Alex, walked in. His resume was flawless, great experience, glowing recommendations, exactly the skill set she needed. But the moment he started talking, a wave of irritation washed over Brenda. There was something about him. His relaxed, almost casual confidence, the way he used certain corporate buzzwords, it felt familiar, annoyingly familiar. Her System 1 brain instantly retrieved a file from its archives. The file was labeled Curtis. Curtis was a project manager she had hired 3 years ago. He had presented with the same easy confidence, used the same buzzwords. He had turned out to be a disaster. All talk, no action, constantly missing deadlines, and blaming others. The experience had been a professional nightmare. Now, sitting across from Alex, Brenda's gut was screaming, "This is Curtis 2.0. Do not hire him." She found herself asking sharp, accusatory questions, trying to catch him in a lie. Her body language became closed off. She was no longer interviewing Alex, she was cross-examining the ghost of Curtis. Then, halfway through a question about managing difficult stakeholders, she had a moment of clarity. It felt like waking up from a daydream. She recognized the hot, defensive feeling in her chest.
It was the Curtis feeling. She realized her lens wasn't just smudged, it was smeared with the residue of a past failure. She paused, took a deep breath, and made a conscious choice. She activated her System 2. "Let me rephrase that," she said, her tone softening. She forced herself to ask a question designed to disprove her assumption, not confirm it. "Could you walk me through a time a project went off the rails because of something you overlooked? What did you do, and what did you learn from it?" Alex didn't hesitate. He described a past failure with humility and clear-eyed analysis, explaining the exact steps he took to rectify it and the systems he put in place to prevent it from happening again. His answer was thoughtful, accountable, and the polar opposite of anything Curtis would have said. Brenda had successfully cleaned her lens in real time. She recognized her bias, in this case, a form of projection, where she was projecting the traits of a past person onto a new one. She deliberately shifted from her fast, emotional autopilot to her slow, logical pilot. She hired Alex. He went on to become the best project manager she had ever worked with. The biggest obstacle to making that great hire wasn't the pool of candidates, it was the ghost in her own mind. The 4 most dangerous distorters. Our minds are filled with dozens of these cognitive shortcuts, but for the purpose of decoding others, 4 stand out as particularly dangerous. Think of them as the 4 most common smudges on your lens. The echo chamber, confirmation bias. This is the mother of all biases. It's our tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. If you believe your new colleague is incompetent, you will notice every minor mistake they make and ignore all evidence of their competence. You're not seeing reality, you're building a case. The ghost in the room, projection bias. This is what happened to Brenda. We project our own feelings, experiences, or traits onto other people. We also project the traits of people from the past onto people in our present. Your boss's quiet demeanor might not be disapproval, it might just remind you of your critical father. The spotlight, egocentric bias. This is the natural but flawed assumption that our own perspective is the most important and correct one. We overestimate how much others think like us, know what we know, and care about what we care about.
When you send a sarcastic text and are shocked the other person took it literally, you're a victim of the spotlight. You forgot they couldn't hear the sarcastic tone inside your head. The simple story, narrative fallacy. Our brains love a good story with a clear hero, villain, and plot. We will often take complex, messy, and unrelated facts and weave them into a simple, coherent narrative. My project failed because my boss sabotaged me is a much easier story to accept than my project failed due to a combination of market shifts, a flawed timeline, and a few minor mistakes I made. Simple stories make us feel in control, but they blind us to the complex truth. Recognizing these distorters is the first step to cleaning your lens. The goal isn't to be perfectly objective. No one is. The goal is to be aware of your potential subjectivity and to correct for it. Chapter in action, the lens cleaning audit. True self-awareness isn't passive, it's an active investigation. Use this simple audit this week to start identifying the smudges on your own lens. Recall a recent misunderstanding. Think of a recent interaction that left you feeling confused, frustrated, or surprised. It could be an argument with a partner, a confusing email from a colleague, or a negotiation that went sour. Identify your gut feeling. What was your immediate System 1 reaction during that interaction? Write it down. He was being deliberately difficult. She was trying to make me look bad. They just don't get it. Run the 4 distorters check. Now review that gut feeling through the lens of the 4 biases we discussed. Confirmation bias. Was I only looking for evidence to support my initial feeling? What evidence did I ignore? Projection bias. Did this person or situation remind me of someone or something from my past? Am I reacting to them or to a ghost? Egocentric bias. Did I assume they knew my intentions or understood my perspective without me stating it clearly? Narrative fallacy. What is the simple story I told myself about what happened? What's a more complex, messier, but possibly truer version of events? Write a new headline. Based on your audit, try to rewrite the headline for the event. Change it from a statement of fact, he was being difficult, to a question or a more neutral observation. I wonder what was making him so hesitant. Or, his communication style was very different from mine and it created friction. This exercise isn't about blaming yourself.
It's about building the crucial mental muscle of self-awareness. It's the practice of wiping the lens clean so that in the next chapter, when we start decoding the world around us, you can be sure you're seeing what's really there. Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. You see through a lens. Your perception is not a perfect mirror of reality. It is shaped by your moods, memories, and beliefs. To see others clearly, you must first see your own lens. Your brain has two speeds. System 1, autopilot, is fast, intuitive, and the source of most biases. System 2, pilot, is slow, analytical, and must be consciously engaged to overcome those biases. Beware the 4 distorters: confirmation bias, the echo chamber; projection bias, the ghost in the room; egocentric bias, the spotlight; and narrative fallacy, the simple story, are the most common culprits that distort your perception. Self-awareness is an active skill. You can't just decide to be unbiased. You must actively question your assumptions, challenge your gut reactions, and consciously look for evidence that contradicts your initial beliefs. Clean the lens first. Understanding others begins with understanding yourself. This internal work is the non-negotiable prerequisite for becoming an effective meaning decoder.
Chapter 3. Decoding the Surface. Part 1. The Body Never Lies. Forget everything you think you know about body language. Seriously, throw it out. If your understanding of nonverbal communication comes from a magazine article you read 10 years ago, you've probably been taught a set of myths that are doing you more harm than good. Myth number 1. Crossed arms means someone is closed off and defensive. Myth number 2. People who don't make eye contact are lying. Myth number 3. A firm handshake means someone is confident. These are not rules. They are caricatures. Sometimes a person crosses their arms because they're cold. Sometimes they look away because they are shy or because they're accessing a memory. Sometimes a firm handshake is just a well-practiced habit. Reading body language isn't about matching a single gesture to a single meaning in a secret decoder ring. That's the stuff of bad television shows. The real art of decoding nonverbal communication is far more sophisticated, far more reliable, and, once you learn the system, far easier. It's not about judging a single isolated gesture. It's about spotting patterns and, more importantly, changes in those patterns. This chapter introduces the single most important concept for decoding the body: baseline plus deviation. The heart monitor of human behavior. Imagine a doctor watching a patient's heart monitor. A steady, rhythmic beep, beep, beep is the patient's normal, healthy state. This is their baseline. The doctor isn't looking for this regular rhythm, they are listening for it. It's the background music of a healthy patient. What the doctor is watching for is a sudden change, a rapid spike, a sudden drop, a frantic irregularity. That is the deviation. The deviation is the signal that something has changed. It tells the doctor, pay attention, investigate this. People are the same way. When you first meet someone, or when they are in a comfortable neutral state, they exhibit a set of default behaviors. This is their baseline. How do they normally sit? How much do they gesture? What's their natural posture? How much eye contact do they make when they're relaxed? This is their unique personal rhythm. The magic isn't in their baseline. The magic is in the deviation. When their behavior suddenly changes in response to a topic, a question, or a person entering the room, that is the moment the body is telling you a secret. The deviation is a hotspot that signals an internal emotional shift.
Your job is to spot the deviation and get curious about what caused it. The silent story of the unsellable house. Grace, a real estate agent, was showing a beautiful modern home to a couple named William and Diana. On paper, it was perfect for them. Right price, right size, great neighborhood. As they walked through the house, Diana was ecstatic. Her body language was an open book, wide eyes, big smiles. She was leaning into every room, touching the countertops, and her words matched her body. "Oh, Will, I love it. It's perfect." William's words were equally positive.
"Yes, the layout is fantastic," he'd say. "Great natural light." A novice would have heard 2 yeses and started drafting the offer. But Grace had trained herself to see past the words. She was watching William's baseline and looking for deviations. His baseline, established in the first 5 minutes, was relaxed and open. But as they went deeper into the house, she noticed a cluster of small deviations. While he was saying great natural light, his feet weren't pointing at the large windows he was complimenting. They were angled slightly, almost imperceptibly, toward the front door. While Diana was excitedly planning where their sofa would go, William, who was standing beside her, had his torso angled slightly away from her and from the center of the room. And when Diana said, "I can see us living here forever, can't you?" William replied, "Absolutely," while bringing a hand up to rub the back of his neck, a classic self-soothing or pacifying behavior that signals stress or discomfort. His words were saying yes, but his body was screaming no. His feet wanted to leave, his torso was distancing itself from the commitment, and his hand was trying to soothe an internal anxiety. This wasn't a lie. It was a conflict. Part of him agreed with his wife, but another part of him was deeply uncomfortable. Grace knew that calling him out would be a disaster, like, "Your feet say you want to leave." Instead, she used her observation to ask a better question. She had decoded the what, discomfort, and now she needed to find the why. "William," she said calmly as they stood in the magnificent kitchen, "I know the house itself seems like a great fit, but I get the sense there might be a practical concern we haven't talked about. For a lot of my clients who love this area, the one drawback is the commute to downtown. I'm just wondering if that's on your mind at all."
William's shoulders visibly relaxed. He let out a sigh he seemed to have been holding in for an hour. "Thank you for saying that," he said, looking at Grace with relief. "Yes, I love this house, but my drive to the office would go from 20 minutes to over an hour. I've been trying to convince myself it's okay, but it's really bothering me." The unspoken objection was now on the table. The conversation shifted from pretending everything was perfect to solving the real problem. Grace was able to suggest a different neighborhood that had a similar style of home but a much easier commute. They found their dream home 2 weeks later. William didn't read his mind. He read his body. He established a baseline, spotted the deviations, and used that data to uncover the truth. The 3 honest channels, where to look for the truth. Your brain has learned to control your face and your words. We know how to put on a poker face or say something polite we don't mean, but it's much harder to control the rest of our body. As you start practicing, focus your attention on these 3 channels, which are often the most honest. 1, the feet and legs, the escape route. The feet are the most honest part of the body, period. Our evolutionary programming tells us to run from danger, and that instinct is still wired into our legs and feet. When we feel uncomfortable or want to leave a situation, our feet will often point toward the nearest exit, even if the rest of our body is facing our conversational partner. What to look for? Where are their feet pointing? Are they pointing at you, a sign of engagement, or toward the door, a desire to leave? Does a foot start jiggling or tapping when a certain topic comes up, a sign of nervous energy needing an outlet? 2, the torso and core, the directional arrow. The torso is our body's directional arrow. We lean toward things and people we like and are interested in. We lean or angle ourselves away from things and people we dislike or are disengaged from. This is often a subconscious protective measure, as if we are using our torso as a shield. What to look for? Is the person leaning in, signaling interest and agreement, or are they leaning back, signaling skepticism or disinterest? Is their torso angled away from you, even if their head is turned toward you? This is often a sign of divided attention or inner conflict. 3, the hands and arms, the emotional barometer. Hands are incredibly expressive.
While we can control some gestures, others are highly unconscious. Pay special attention to two types of gestures. Pacifying behaviors. These are the repetitive, self-soothing actions we do to calm ourselves down when we are stressed, anxious, or uncomfortable. Common examples include rubbing the neck, touching the face, stroking one's own arm, or wringing hands. Spotting a pacifying behavior right after you ask a question is a massive clue that the topic is a source of stress. Gravity-defying gestures. Our natural state is one of calm, low energy. When we are confident, excited, or passionate, our gestures tend to defy gravity. Our eyebrows flash up, our shoulders give a quick shrug, our hands move upward. When we feel defeated, sad, or uncertain, our gestures follow gravity. Our shoulders slump, our head drops, our posture collapses. A sudden gravity-defying shrug when someone says, "I'm absolutely certain," can reveal their true lack of confidence. Decoding the body is a skill of observation, not judgment. Your goal is not to catch someone in a lie, but to notice the moments of comfort and discomfort. These are the entry points to a deeper understanding. These are the clues that tell you where to dig. Chapter in action: the baseline journal. This week, you will become a behavioral detective for the people you know best. It's easier to establish a baseline for someone you see regularly. Choose 3 subjects. Pick 3 people you interact with frequently: a partner, a close colleague, a family member. Create their baseline file. In a notebook or a file on your computer, dedicate a page to each person. Observe them in a neutral state. For the next few days, pay attention to them when they're in a relaxed, low-stakes environment, e.g. chatting about the weather, watching TV, making coffee. On their page, jot down observations about their baseline in the 3 honest channels. Feet and legs. How do they normally stand or sit? Are their legs crossed? Ankle over knee? Torso. What is their default posture? Do they lean or sit up straight? Hands and arms. How much do they gesture in normal conversation? Where do their hands rest when they are calm? Watch for the deviation. Now, the next time you are in a more important conversation or a new topic comes up, watch for any change from that established baseline. Did they suddenly cross their legs? Did their foot start tapping? Did they start rubbing their neck? Just note it. Don't say anything.
Don't jump to a conclusion. Just make a mental note or write it down later. When I mentioned the project deadline, Dad started rubbing his neck. This exercise will train your eyes to see what has been in front of you all along. You are building your own personal library of human behavior, and in doing so, you are taking the first critical step into reading the surface layer of communication. Chapter summary: key insights to remember. Go beyond cliches. Don't rely on simplistic body language dictionaries. Real decoding is about context and patterns. Master baseline plus deviation. First, understand a person's normal, relaxed state, their baseline. Then, watch for any sudden change from that state, the deviation. The deviation signals an emotional shift. Comfort versus discomfort. Your primary goal is to identify signs of comfort, leaning in, open posture, and discomfort, pacifying behaviors, leaning away. These are the most reliable signals. Trust the 3 honest channels. The feet reveal intent, stay or go. The torso reveals interest, engage or shield. And the hands reveal emotion, stress or confidence. Observation precedes understanding. Don't jump to conclusions. Your first job is simply to notice the deviation. Getting curious about its cause is the next step.
Chapter 4: Decoding the Surface, Part 2, The Sound of Truth. It was Monday morning, and one of my best employees, a driven young analyst named Daniel, had called in sick. That afternoon, I called to check on him. "Hey, Daniel, just checking in," I said. "How are you feeling?" His reply came through the phone, a disembodied voice stripped of all physical context. "Hey, Coleman, thanks for calling. I'm doing okay, just a nasty bug. I should be fine by tomorrow." The words were perfect, reassuring, responsible. Exactly what you'd want to hear. If communication were only about words, I would have hung up the phone satisfied, my managerial duty done. But I didn't, because his voice told a completely different story. It wasn't the words, it was the music. His speech, normally crisp and energetic, was slow and heavy, as if he were wading through mud to get each word out. His pitch, usually vibrant and full of inflection, was flat, monotone, devoid of any energy. And there was a slight, almost imperceptible tremor in it, a faint vibration of stress. His words said, "I have a nasty bug." His voice said, "I am completely and utterly burned out." My gut told me this wasn't a 24-hour flu, this was something deeper. The next day, I didn't ask him about his bug. I invited him for a coffee and asked a different question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how's your stress level been lately? The dam broke. He confessed he'd been overwhelmed for months, struggling with a massive workload and feeling too afraid to admit he couldn't handle it. He wasn't sick in the conventional sense. He was on the verge of a serious breakdown. The sick day was a desperate act of self-preservation. My ability to hear the truth had nothing to do with the words he chose and everything to do with the sound he made. This is the second half of the surface layer of communication. Once you've trained your eyes to see the body, you must train your ears to hear the sound. Because often, the most honest thing a person says isn't a word at all. The music is the message. The study of the rhythm, pitch, and intonation of speech is called prosody. Think of it as the music of language. The words are the lyrics, but the prosody is the melody, harmony, and tempo. And just like in a song, the music is what delivers the emotion. You can listen to a song in a language you don't understand and still know if it's joyful, tragic, or aggressive. The human voice works the same way.
Our brains are exquisitely tuned to this music. Neuroscience shows that while the left hemisphere of our brain is busy processing the literal words, the lyrics, the right hemisphere is processing the emotional tone, the music. The problem is we live in a world that trains us to focus almost exclusively on the lyrics. We analyze reports, we read emails, we listen for key words. We've been taught to ignore half the message. A meaning decoder learns to listen with both sides of their brain. They hear the words, but they feel the music. The first step is learning to isolate the 3 key instruments in this vocal orchestra: pitch, pace, and power. The 3 P's of prosody. 1. Pitch, the emotional highs and lows. Pitch is the frequency of the voice. Changes in pitch are one of the most powerful indicators of a person's emotional state and level of certainty. The question inflection, uptalk. When a person ends a declarative statement with a rising pitch, as if it were a question, it signals uncertainty or a need for approval. Compare, "The report will be done by 5." Falling pitch sounds certain with, "The report will be done by 5?" Rising pitch sounds like a question or a hope. Someone who consistently uses uptalk may be feeling insecure about their authority or knowledge. The declarative drop, downtalk. A falling pitch at the end of a sentence signals confidence, finality, and authority. It sounds definitive. When you want to project certainty, end your statements with a downward inflection. The emotional drop. Pay close attention to when a person's pitch suddenly drops mid-sentence on a specific word. This often highlights a word that carries a heavy emotional weight. In a salary negotiation, if a manager says, "We have a standard process for promotions, but the budget is really tight this quarter," and their pitch drops on the word budget, that is the key word. That is the true obstacle. The drop in pitch signals its significance. 2. Pace, or tempo, is the speed at which someone speaks. Like body language, what you're looking for is a change from their baseline pace. Fast pace, an increase in speed can signal excitement, passion, or enthusiasm. It can also be a sign of anxiety or nervousness, as if the person is trying to get through a difficult topic as quickly as possible. To tell the difference, look for other cues. Is the fast pace accompanied by gravity-defying gestures, excitement, or pacifying behaviors, anxiety?
Slow pace. A decrease in speed can signal thoughtfulness, deliberation, or a desire to emphasize a point. It can also indicate fatigue, sadness, or a lack of confidence. When someone who normally speaks quickly suddenly slows down, they are either choosing their words very carefully or they are carrying a heavy emotional load. 3. Power, the volume of confidence. Power is the volume or loudness of the voice. Changes in volume are often direct indicators of a person's feelings of dominance or submission in a social dynamic. Increased volume. This is a classic sign of trying to assert dominance, show confidence, or express anger. It's an attempt to take up more auditory space. Decreased volume. A sudden drop in volume, often to a near whisper, is a massive tell. It signals secrecy, shame, or uncertainty. If you ask a direct question and the person's answer becomes noticeably quieter, they are likely uncomfortable with the topic. It's the vocal equivalent of trying to hide. The secret weapon? The pregnant pause. Beyond the 3 Ps, there is one more crucial element: silence. We are deeply uncomfortable with silence in conversations. We rush to fill it with ums, ahs, and other verbal static. A meaning decoder understands that a pause is not an absence of communication, it is a form of communication. There are 2 kinds of pauses to listen for. The cognitive pause. This is the pause of a mind at work. It happens when someone is asked a complex question and they pause to think before answering. It's a sign of deliberation. It's a good pause. The emotional pause. This is the pause of uncomfort. It happens when you ask a simple question that should have an easy answer, but the person hesitates. For example, were you at the meeting yesterday? The answer is a simple yes or no. If there is a noticeable hesitation before they answer, that pause is pregnant with meaning. It tells you there is a conflict or a complication in their mind. The hesitation is often more truthful than the words that eventually follow. The therapist's ear. Dr. Evelyn Reed, a clinical psychologist, once told me her most reliable diagnostic tool wasn't a questionnaire, it was her ear. She described a client, Robert, who came to her suffering from severe anxiety. For the first few months, Robert would talk at length about his week, his problems, and his worries.
His words were insightful, Evelyn explained. He was smart, and he understood his issues intellectually. But his voice was a heart monitor in the red zone. It was high-pitched, fast-paced, and breathy. He spoke from his throat, a tight, constricted sound. He sounded like a man who was constantly bracing for impact. Robert would often talk about having good weeks. He'd say, "I think I'm really making progress." But his voice told Evelyn he was just putting on a brave face. The music hadn't changed. Then, about 6 months into their therapy, a shift occurred. It wasn't a sudden breakthrough. It was a gradual change in the music. His pace began to slow. The high, tight pitch in his voice began to drop, becoming more resonant and centered in his chest. He started using pauses, not out of anxiety, but out of thoughtfulness. One day, Robert came in and described a difficult situation at work. A year ago, the story would have been delivered in a frantic, high-pitched torrent. This time, he described it with a calm, measured pace and a steady, resonant tone. At the end of the story, he said, "And you know what? It was fine. I handled it." Evelyn smiled. "I know," she said. "I could hear it." The words, "I handled it," were just a confirmation of what his voice had been telling her for the past 20 minutes. His healing wasn't in his intellectual understanding. It was in the sound of his truth. Chapter in action: the conversational replay. Your mission this week is to start listening to the music, not just the lyrics. This exercise trains your brain to access and analyze the prosodic information you already hear but usually ignore. Recall a conversation. Pick a meaningful phone call or in-person conversation you had in the last 24 hours. Close your eyes for 60 seconds. Mute the words.
In your mind, try to replay the conversation, but focus exclusively on the sound of the other person's voice. Don't worry about the specific words. Scan the 3 Ps and the pause. Ask yourself these questions. Pitch. Was their voice generally high or low? Did their pitch rise at the end of sentences, uncertainty, or fall, certainty? Did it drop on any key words? Pace. Were they speaking faster or slower than usual?
Did their pace change at any point in the conversation? When? Power. Was their volume strong and steady, or did it get quiet or trail off? Pauses. Were there any noticeable hesitations before they answered a question?
What did the music tell you? Based only on the sound, what was the underlying emotional state of that person? Were they confident, anxious, tired, excited? How did that musical message compare to the literal words they used? Do this once a day. This simple act of mindful recall will dramatically increase your sensitivity to the rich, truthful music of the human voice. Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. The music is the message. How something is said, prosody, is often more truthful than what is said, the words. Learn to listen with both sides of your brain. Listen for the 3 Ps. Track the pitch, high-low for emotion or certainty, pace, fast-slow for anxiety or thoughtfulness, and power, volume for confidence or shame. A change is a signal. Just like with body language, you are listening for a deviation from a person's vocal baseline. A sudden change in any of the 3 Ps means pay attention. A pause is not nothing. A pause can signal deep thought, cognitive, or deep discomfort, emotional. An unexpected hesitation is a major clue that there is more to the story. The sound of truth. A person's true emotional state is broadcast in the music of their voice. A calm, resonant tone is a reliable indicator of genuine confidence and ease. A tight, high-pitched, or shaky voice signals stress, no matter how confident the words sound.
Chapter 5. Uncovering the Subtext. Listening between the lines. James was under the kitchen sink, wrestling with a leaky faucet, the metallic tang of frustration in his mouth. He was focused. The world had shrunk to a single, stubborn pipe fitting. This was a surface problem. Water is leaking. The solution is to stop the leak. Simple. His wife Maya walked into the kitchen and glanced out the window. "Wow," she said, her voice light. "The neighbors are redoing their whole garden. It looks amazing." "Uh-huh," James grunted, his voice muffled by the cabinet. He gave the wrench one last desperate heave. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I saw a sale on gardenias at the nursery the other day." "That's nice, hon," James said, his attention still fixed on the drip. "Almost there." Another pause. Maya sighed, a sound so soft it was almost lost beneath the clank of the wrench. "Okay, well, I'm gonna go fold the laundry." She left the room. Later that evening, James felt it. A coolness, a subtle distance between them. When he asked if anything was wrong, Maya just shook her head. "No, I'm just tired." But the real answer was yes, something was wrong. An invisible emotional account had been overdrawn, transaction by tiny transaction. The leaky faucet was fixed, but a different kind of crack had formed. What happened? James had successfully diagnosed and solved the problem on the surface. But he had completely missed the real conversation, the one happening just beneath the words. He was listening to the lyrics, but he was deaf to the music's meaning. Maya's comment, "The neighbors are redoing their garden," was not a weather report. It was a bid for connection. Welcome to the second layer of the SSS Framework, the subtext. This is the land of meaning that lives between the lines. It's the true intention, the hidden emotion, the unspoken request. People rarely say exactly what they mean, especially when vulnerability, desire, or conflict are involved. They speak in code. The subtext is that code. Learning to decipher it is the difference between a relationship that thrives and one that mysteriously withers. Why we speak in code. If the subtext is so important, why don't people just say what they mean? We speak indirectly for a host of powerful psychological reasons. Fear of vulnerability. A direct request can be rejected. Saying, "I'm lonely and want to connect with you," is far riskier than saying, "Wow, look at that sunset."
The second statement allows for plausible deniability if the bid for connection is ignored. Social politeness. In most cultures, directness can be perceived as rudeness. We soften our requests and criticisms to maintain social harmony. I wonder if there's a way to look at this differently. Is a softer, more polite version of, "This is a bad idea." Testing the waters. People use subtext to gauge a reaction before committing to a position. A colleague might say, "The workload on this project is getting pretty intense," to see if you agree before they directly suggest asking for an extension. A mind reader tries to guess the secret message. A meaning decoder knows the message isn't secret, it's just encrypted. Your job is to learn the encryption keys. 4 subtext detectors, your encryption keys. Subtext isn't random. It reveals itself in predictable linguistic patterns. If you train your ear to catch them, the hidden meaning will pop into focus. Here are 4 of the most reliable detectors. 1. The pronoun shift. Pay close attention when someone shifts from I to a more distant pronoun like we, the team, people, or you. This shift is often used to diffuse responsibility or create emotional distance. When your boss says, "We need to be more careful about deadlines," instead of, "I need you to be more careful about deadlines," they are softening a direct criticism. The subtext is a warning, but it's delivered from a safe distance. When a friend says, "People just let you down sometimes," after you ask them what's wrong, they are almost certainly talking about a specific person who just let them down. The subtext is, "I'm hurt, but I'm not ready to talk about the specifics." 2. The vague generalization. When someone uses absolute words like always, never, everyone, or no one, they are rarely speaking a literal truth. They are expressing a powerful, immediate emotion. "You never listen to me" doesn't mean the person has literally never listened. The subtext is, "I feel unheard and unimportant in this moment." Respond to the feeling, not the exaggeration. "Everyone at the new company is so much younger than me" isn't a demographic report. The subtext is, "I feel insecure and out of place." 3. The glaring omission. The dog that didn't bark in the night. As the great detective Sherlock Holmes noted, sometimes the most important clue is the dog that doesn't bark in the night. The most significant part of a conversation is often what is not said.
You give a presentation with 5 key points. Afterward, your client praises points 1, 2, 4, and 5, but says nothing about point 3, the one with the biggest budget implication. Their silence on point 3 is the subtext. It's a giant flashing red light of concern. You share some exciting personal news with a friend, and they respond, "Wow, that's great. So did you see that movie that just came out?" Their failure to ask a single follow-up question is the message. The subtext is disinterest, or perhaps even envy. 4. The topic pivot. This is a classic avoidance maneuver. When you ask a direct question and the person immediately changes the subject, the pivot itself is the answer. You, "How did your performance review with the director go?" Them, "It was fine. I'm starving. Should we get some pizza?" The subtext is clear. I do not want to talk about the performance review, likely because it did not go well. Don't follow them to the new topic. Mentally bookmark their evasion. The most important subtext of all, the emotional bid. Dr. John Gottman, a world-renowned relationship researcher, has studied thousands of couples and can predict with over 90% accuracy whether they will stay together or divorce. His secret? He doesn't listen for grand romantic gestures. He listens for something much smaller. Emotional bids. An emotional bid is any attempt from one person to another for attention, affirmation, or connection. These bids are the fundamental currency of emotional connection, and they are almost always spoken in the language of subtext. Maya's comment about the neighbor's garden was a bid. Her comment about the gardenias was another bid. She wasn't talking about flowers. She was saying, "Hey, notice me. Connect with me for a moment. Share this small piece of the world with me." According to Gottman, in any interaction, we can respond to a bid in one of three ways. Turning toward, you acknowledge and engage with the bid. James, wow, it does look amazing. What did they plant? This builds connection. Turning away, you ignore or dismiss the bid. James, Turning against, you respond with irritation or hostility. James, can't you see I'm busy here? This actively destroys connection. Couples who thrive are not the ones who never fight. They are the masters of connection who consistently turn toward each other's emotional bids. They hear the subtext.
They understand that "look at that bird" is rarely about the bird. It's a bid to share a moment. James and Maya's relationship wasn't failing because of big fights. It was slowly starving from 1,000 missed bids, a death by 1,000 ahas. The change for them began when James learned to listen for the bid beneath the words. One evening, months later, they were sitting on their porch. Maya looked up at the sky. "Wow, the sunset is beautiful tonight," she said. The old James, the surface-level James, would have grunted in agreement and stayed focused on his phone. But the new James, the meaning decoder, heard the bid. He heard the subtext, "Share this moment with me." He put his phone down, he looked at the sky. Then he looked at her. "It really is," he said, putting his arm around her. "Come here, let's watch it together." In that moment, 1,000 tiny cracks were repaired. He hadn't just fixed a leaky faucet, he had learned to fix a broken connection. He had learned to listen between the lines. Chapter in action. The subtext log. Your mission this week is to become a student of the unspoken. You're going to keep a simple log to train your ear to hear what's really being said. Get a small notebook or open a note on your phone. This is your subtext log. Listen for one pattern a day. Each day, choose one of the 4 subtext detectors: pronoun shift, generalization, omission, or topic pivot, or an emotional bid. As your target, log your findings. When you hear it, make a quick note. Structure it like this: situation, my colleague talking about our new boss. Surface, the words, people around here seem a little nervous about the changes. Subtext, the real meaning, I am nervous about the changes, and I'm wondering if you are too. No action required. The goal here is not to confront anyone or even to act on the information yet. The goal is pure awareness. You're simply tuning your ear to a new frequency. By the end of the week, you will have a list of decoded messages. You will begin to realize that there is a whole second conversation happening around you all the time. You just needed to learn how to hear it. Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. The real conversation is in the subtext. People rarely say exactly what they mean. The subtext contains the true emotion, desire, or intention. Subtext is a shield. People speak indirectly to protect themselves from vulnerability, maintain social harmony, and test the waters. Use your subtext detectors. Listen for revealing linguistic patterns like the pronoun shift, vague generalization, glaring omission, and topic pivot. Emotional bids are everything. The most important subtext in relationships are emotional bids, small attempts to connect. Learning to turn toward these bids is the master skill of emotional connection. Listen for the need. Behind every piece of subtext is an unspoken need, a need for reassurance, a need to feel safe, a need to be heard, or a need to connect. Your job is to listen for that need.
Chapter 6. The Power of Purposeful Questions, the Master Key to the Subtext. Walter was worried about Olivia. For 2 years, she had been his star performer, a brilliant, proactive strategist who was always the first to volunteer for a challenge. But for the last month, something was off. She was quiet in meetings. Her emails were terse. The fire in her eyes had been replaced by a low, simmering burnout. Walter, being a good manager, decided to address it directly. He called her into his office. "Hey, Olivia," he started, aiming for a casual tone. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine," she said, her eyes fixed on a point just over his shoulder. "You sure?" he pressed. "You've just seemed a bit quiet lately. How's the new project going?" "It's going fine," she replied, her voice perfectly level. Walter was stuck. He knew fine was a lie. He had observed the surface data, the flat tone, the averted gaze, the slumped posture. He had detected the subtext, a deep well of disengagement. But every time he tried to access it, she slammed the door shut. His questions, which he thought were helpful, were acting like sledgehammers on a locked door. They were loud, clumsy, and only made her reinforce the barrier. Walter's problem is one we all face. We can sense the subtext, we can feel the unspoken tension, but we don't know how to bring it to the surface without causing an explosion. Our standard questions, "What's wrong? Are you mad at me? Why did you do that?" are conversational landmines. They feel like accusations, putting the other person on the defensive and forcing them to protect their real feelings. To unlock the subtext, you don't need a sledgehammer, you need a key. Purposeful questions are that key. Unlike normal questions, which demand information, purposeful questions are designed to create safety and invite reflection. They are the master tool for turning passive observation into active understanding. They don't just ask what someone is thinking, they create the conditions for them to discover and share the truth. From interrogation to invitation. The fundamental shift is from asking questions that feel like an interrogation to asking questions that feel like an invitation. An interrogation question puts the person on the spot and demands justification. The classic example is any question that starts with why. Why were you late? Why didn't you finish the report?
It instantly triggers our defensive wiring, and we scramble to find an excuse rather than the real reason. An invitation question is open-ended and non-judgmental. It signals curiosity, not accusation. It makes the other person the expert on their own experience and gives them control. To make this shift, we need to upgrade our conversational toolkit. Drawing from the work of hostage negotiators and world-class therapists, we can distill this complex skill into 3 powerful techniques: labeling, mirroring, and asking calibrated questions. Technique number 1, the label. It seems like a label is a verbal observation of the other person's feeling or position. It's a gentle guess, offered up tentatively. You are not telling them how they feel. You are showing them what you see and inviting them to confirm or correct you. Labels almost always begin with the phrases, "It seems like," "It sounds like," "It looks like." Notice the softness. It's not, "You are angry." It's, "It seems like you're frustrated." This small difference is everything. The first is an accusation. The second is an observation that begs for clarification. When you use a label correctly, one of 2 magical things happens. If you're right, the other person feels an incredible sense of relief. They feel seen and understood. The walls come down. If you're wrong, they will correct you, but in doing so, they will often tell you the real emotion. "No, it's not that I'm frustrated," they might say. "It's that I'm worried." And just like that, the true feeling is on the table. Technique number 2, the mirror. The last 1 to 3 words? Mirroring is one of the simplest and most astonishingly effective techniques you will ever learn. It consists of simply repeating the last 1 to 3 key words your counterpart has just said with a slight upward, questioning inflection. It feels strange at first. You'll think it's too simple to work. You'll feel like you're just parroting them, but it is conversational gold. Mirroring is not about understanding. It's about creating a connection that leads to understanding.
It signals, I'm listening. I'm paying attention. Please go on. It's a non-judgmental prompt that encourages the other person to keep talking, often revealing more than they intended. Them. I've just been dealing with a lot of pressure lately. You. A lot of pressure? Them. Yeah, especially since the new merger was announced. I'm not sure how my role fits in anymore.
Look what happened. With just 3 words, you moved from a vague complaint, pressure, to the specific source of the anxiety, the merger. Technique number 3, the calibrated question. What and how? Calibrated questions are open-ended questions that are precisely designed to disarm defensiveness and encourage creative, detailed responses. They almost always start with the words what or how. These words are powerful because they put the other person in a problem-solving state. You are implicitly asking for their help and giving them control. Compare the power of these questions to their weaker cousins. Instead of, is there a problem? A yes-no question that invites a no, ask, what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now? Instead of, can you get this done by Friday? A yes-no question that forces a commitment, ask, how can we make sure this gets done by Friday? Instead of, why did you do it that way? Accusatory why question, ask, what was the thinking behind that approach? Calibrated questions gently pry open the locked door of the subtext and invite the other person to walk you through what's inside. Walter's second chance. Let's rewind the scene with Walter and Olivia. This time, Walter enters with his new toolkit. He's no longer trying to be a mind reader. He's a meaning decoder armed with purposeful questions. He calls her into his office. She sits down with the same flat expression. Walter, using a label. Olivia, thanks for coming in. It seems like the last few weeks have been particularly draining for you. Olivia blinks. It's not the question she expected. It's not an accusation. It's an observation. Olivia, I guess it's just been a lot of work. Walter, using a mirror. A lot of work. Olivia, yeah, I mean, the project is fine. It's just, I'm not sure about the new strategic direction. Walter, using another label. It sounds like you're concerned about how all these changes will play out. Olivia, the dam beginning to crack. Concerned is part of it. I just feel like the work I'm best at, the deep strategic analysis, isn't what the company values anymore. It's all about speed now. Walter, using a calibrated question. That makes sense. What about this shift to speed feels like the biggest challenge to you personally? And there it is. The master key has turned the lock. The conversation is no longer about Olivia being fine. It's about her fear that her role, the work she loves, is becoming obsolete.
Walter had finally uncovered the true subtext, and now that it was on the surface, they could actually solve it. The conversation shifted from a tense, unspoken conflict to a collaborative, problem-solving session about her future at the company. Purposeful questions didn't just give Walter an answer. They gave him back his star player. Chapter in action. The question makeover. Your mission is to upgrade your own questions. This week, catch yourself before you ask a standard, low-value question and perform a question makeover. Identify a clumsy question. Think of the common defensive questions you or others use. Write one down. Example 1. Are you mad at me? Example 2. Why haven't you called me back? Example 3. Do you like my idea? Perform the makeover. Now upgrade that question using your new toolkit. Makeover 1. Using a label. It seems like you're a little quiet. Did something I said land the wrong way? Makeover 2. Using a calibrated question. It sounds like you've been swamped. How can I best get on your calendar? Makeover 3. Using a label and a calibrated question. It seems like you might have some reservations about the idea. What part of this proposal gives you the most pause? Deploy one upgraded question. In a real conversation this week, consciously choose to use one of your new purposeful questions instead of your old default. Notice the difference in the response you get. This simple practice will begin to rewire your conversational habits, moving you from a source of pressure to a source of safety.
Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. Standard questions fail. Questions like, "What's wrong?" or "Why did you?" put people on the defensive and shut down honest conversation. Shift from interrogation to invitation. The goal of a purposeful question is to make the other person feel safe enough to share the truth. The 3 master keys. Labeling, "It seems like." Verbally observe an emotion to show you're paying attention. Mirroring, the last 1 to 3 words. Repeat keywords to encourage them to elaborate. Calibrated questions. What? How? Ask open-ended questions that give them control and invite detailed answers. Create safety, not pressure. These tools are not for trapping someone. They are for building a bridge of trust so the subtext can safely cross over into the surface. The key to the next layer. Purposeful questions don't just unlock the subtext. They are the primary tool you will use to uncover the deepest layer of all, the source.
Chapter 7. Reaching the Source. Part 1. The 6 Universal Human Needs. For months, Paul felt like he was at war with his own team member. Kevin, a sharp and ambitious analyst, had become a thorn in his side. In team meetings, if Paul presented a new idea, Kevin would be the first to poke holes in it. If Paul laid out a plan, Kevin would publicly question the timeline. He would send late-night emails to the entire team suggesting alternative approaches to projects Paul was leading. Paul had decoded the surface and the subtext, and the conclusion seemed obvious. Surface: Kevin interrupts, challenges authority, and oversteps his role. Subtext: Kevin is trying to undermine me. He thinks he can do my job better. He is arrogant and wants to make me look bad. Paul's response was predictable. He became defensive. He started shutting Kevin down in meetings and assigning him less important work, trying to put him back in his place. But the strategy backfired. Kevin's behavior only got worse. The tension grew so thick that the entire team's morale started to plummet. Paul was exhausted, frustrated, and on the verge of starting the formal process to have Kevin removed from his team. But what if Paul's interpretation, as logical as it seemed, was completely wrong? What if undermining him wasn't Kevin's goal at all, but merely a clumsy side effect of a much deeper, more powerful driver? Welcome to the final and most profound layer of the SSS Framework, the source. If the surface is what people do and the subtext is what they mean, the source is why they must. The source is the engine room of human behavior. It's the fundamental core driver that powers our emotions, our decisions, and our actions. When you understand a person's source, you move beyond interpreting their behavior to actually predicting it. You stop reacting to their moves and start understanding the deep-seated reason they are playing the game in the first place. And at the very core of this engine room, you will find one of the most powerful forces in the universe, the drive to meet our fundamental human needs. The hidden engine, the 6 universal needs. Psychologists from Abraham Maslow to modern behavioral scientists have shown that all human action is a response to a deep-seated need. We are all need-driven creatures. While our personalities and circumstances are unique, the core needs that drive us are universal.
For our purposes as meaning decoders, we can distill them into a practical framework of 6 core needs. Every action a person takes is an attempt to satisfy one or more of these. Certainty, the need to feel safe, secure, and comfortable. It's the drive for stability, predictability, and the avoidance of pain. People with a high need for certainty love plans, rules, and reliable routines. They are driven by the need for a safe harbor. Variety, or uncertainty, the polar opposite of certainty. This is the need for novelty, challenge, excitement, and change. People with a high need for variety get bored easily. They are driven by the thrill of the unknown and the excitement of a new puzzle to solve. Significance, the need to feel important, unique, special, and needed.
It's the drive to stand out, to be seen, and to know that your life has meaning. This need can be met by being the best at something, by having a special title, or even by having a bigger problem than anyone else. Connection, or love. The need to feel a part of something, to be bonded with others, and to feel loved. It's the drive for intimacy, community, and belonging. This is the need that drives us to join teams, build families, and form friendships. Growth, the need to expand, learn, and develop. It's the spiritual and intellectual drive to constantly improve and increase our capacity. People driven by growth are always reading, taking courses, and seeking out new skills. Contribution, the need to give beyond ourselves. It's the drive to serve a greater good, to help others, and to leave a legacy. This is the need to make a difference in the world. These 6 needs are the source code of human motivation. The first 4, certainty, variety, significance, and connection, are essential needs of the personality. Everyone must find a way to meet them. The last 2, growth and contribution, are the needs of the spirit, and meeting them is the path to true fulfillment. The breakthrough, separating the strategy from the need. Paul was at his wit's end. Before taking drastic action, he decided to try one last thing. He took out a piece of paper, and instead of listing all the things Kevin did wrong, he tried to diagnose Kevin's behavior through the lens of the 6 needs. Is Kevin driven by a need for certainty? No, he's the first to challenge established plans. Is it connection? No, his behavior is pushing everyone away. Is it variety? Maybe. He seems to love new ideas.
But that doesn't explain the confrontational style. What about significance? A light bulb went on in Paul's head. What if Kevin's constant challenging wasn't about undermining Paul, but about a desperate need to feel important? What if his late-night emails weren't acts of sabotage, but clumsy attempts to show he had value? Paul suddenly remembered a comment Kevin had made once about being the first person in his family to get a college degree, and how much pressure he felt to prove himself. Paul had been judging Kevin's strategy, a terrible, abrasive, and counterproductive strategy for getting noticed, but he had completely missed the underlying need. The need for significance is not a bad thing. It's a universal human driver. Kevin was just going about meeting it in the worst possible way. This insight changed everything. Kevin was no longer an enemy to be defeated. He was a puzzle to be solved. His core need wasn't being met, and his behavior was the symptom of that unmet need. Armed with this new understanding, Paul changed his own strategy. Instead of shutting Kevin down, he decided to find a more productive way to feed Kevin's need for significance. The next week, before a major team meeting, he called Kevin into his office. "Kevin," he said, "I've been reviewing the data for the new campaign, and there's a weak spot in our demographic analysis that I haven't been able to crack. Honestly, you're better at this kind of deep dive analysis than anyone else on the team. Would you be willing to take a look and give me your unfiltered thoughts before the meeting?" Kevin was momentarily stunned. He wasn't being challenged, he was being recruited. He wasn't being sidelined, he was being told he was special. He took the report and came back 2 hours later with a brilliant, insightful analysis that not only solved the problem, but also uncovered a major new opportunity. In the team meeting, Paul didn't just present the findings, he gave Kevin full credit. The breakthrough on this came from Kevin. He saw something the rest of us missed. The change was immediate and dramatic. Once Kevin's core need for significance was being met in a healthy, productive way, the negative strategies, the interrupting, the challenging, the undermining, simply melted away. He didn't need them anymore. He became Paul's most valuable and collaborative partner. Paul had stopped fighting the behavior and started feeding the need. That's the power of decoding the source. Chapter in action: become a source detective. This week, your mission is to look beneath the surface of a conflict in your own life and diagnose the hidden need. Identify a problem person or conflict. Think of someone whose behavior consistently frustrates, confuses, or angers you.
It could be a difficult colleague, a frustrating family member, or even yourself in a situation you regret. Describe the surface behavior. On a piece of paper, write down the specific actions they, or you, take. Be objective. She always criticizes my spending. He never commits to a plan. I procrastinate on important projects. Diagnose the driving needs or needs. Look at the list of the 6 universal human needs. Which one or two needs does this behavior seem designed to meet? Is the criticism about spending really about a deep need for certainty and financial security? Is the refusal to commit to a plan about a need for variety and a fear of being trapped? Is the procrastination about a need to avoid the potential pain of failure, a form of certainty, or a fear that the final product won't be special enough, a form of significance? Separate the strategy from the need. Write this sentence. While their strategy of insert behavior is not effective, their need for insert need is valid. This step is crucial for building empathy. You don't have to do anything with this information yet. The goal of this exercise is to shift your perspective. When you can see the universal human need driving even the most frustrating behavior, judgment begins to dissolve and is replaced by a powerful, empathetic understanding. Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. The source is the deep why. It's the core driver that explains human behavior on the most fundamental level. All behavior serves a need. Every action we take is an attempt to meet one of the 6 universal human needs: certainty, variety, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. Separate the strategy from the need. This is the empathy breakthrough. People use both positive and negative strategies to meet their needs. Don't judge their, often clumsy, strategy. Get curious about their always valid need. Meet the need, change the behavior. The most effective way to change someone's negative behavior is to find a more positive and productive way to help them meet their underlying need. Diagnosis before prescription. Before you react or try to solve a problem, take the time to accurately diagnose the source driving the person you're trying to understand.
Chapter 8, Reaching the Source, Part 2, Uncovering Their Personal Blueprint. Think of 2 people you know who deeply value the need for significance. The first person might be an entrepreneur like Elon Musk, driven to change the world with audacious, highly visible projects. Their path to significance is paved with innovation, risk, and public acclaim. The second person might be a quiet, dedicated elementary school teacher in a small town. She finds her significance not on a public stage, but in the private moments of breakthrough when a struggling child finally learns to read. Her name will never be in the headlines, but in the world of that child and their family, she is the most significant person imaginable. Both individuals are driven by the same universal human need, yet their expressions of it are worlds apart. Why? Because while the 6 needs are the universal engine of human motivation, they don't tell the whole story. If the needs are the engine, then a person's unique set of values and beliefs is their personal navigation system, their internal GPS that tells them how to meet those needs. It's their personal blueprint. If you only understand someone's needs, you have a blurry, generic map of human nature. But when you uncover their personal blueprint, you get a high-resolution, turn-by-turn guide to their inner world. You understand not just what drives them, but the specific rules they live by to feel happy, successful, and whole. This is the final and most personal layer of the source. Values, the compass of the soul. Values are the words we use to describe what is most important to us. They are the emotional states we want to experience or the qualities we prize above all others. Think of them as the compass points on our internal map. Words like freedom, security, integrity, adventure, family, achievement, loyalty, creativity. When you hear someone use one of these words with emotional intensity, you are getting a direct glimpse into their blueprint. These aren't just words. They are the signposts that guide every major decision they make. Consider a classic business conflict. Two partners, Maria and Ben, are fighting over whether to accept a major investment from a large corporation. On the surface, it's an argument about money and control. But when you listen to the values embedded in their language, you see the real conflict. Maria says things like, "This deal gives us security for the next 10 years.
It's the smart, responsible thing to do. Her core values are clearly security and responsibility. This deal is the vehicle to meet her need for certainty. Ben, on the other hand, argues, but we'd lose our freedom. We built this company to have the independence to pursue our own vision, not to be just another cog in a corporate machine. His core values are freedom and independence. For him, this deal violates the very reason he started the business, to meet his need for significance and variety on his own terms. They are not arguing about a business deal. They are locked in a fundamental conflict of values. Their internal compasses are pointing in opposite directions. Any solution that doesn't honor both of their core values is doomed to fail. A meaning decoder understands this and would reframe the problem not as, should we take the deal, but as, how can we achieve the security Maria needs while preserving the freedom Ben needs? The focus shifts from a battle of positions to a search for a solution that aligns with their personal blueprints. Beliefs, the rules of the game. If values are the destination, beliefs are the specific rules of the road that tell us how to get there. Beliefs are the unconscious assumptions we hold about what has to happen for us to feel a certain way. They often take the form of an if-then statement. If I don't get this promotion, then I am a failure. If my kids are happy, then I am a good parent. If people disagree with me in a meeting, then they don't respect me. These rules are some of the most powerful and often invisible forces shaping a person's life. You can uncover these rules by listening for generalizations and cause and effect statements. Let's go back to our feuding partners. Maria's blueprint might contain a core belief: if you turn down a safe offer, then you are being reckless and irresponsible. This rule was likely forged in her past, perhaps from seeing her own family struggle financially. Ben's blueprint might have a different rule. If you take money from a big corporation, then you have sold out your integrity. This belief might come from a past experience where he felt stifled in a corporate job. The rules are in direct opposition. They are playing the same game with completely different rule books. Until they can see and understand each other's rules, they will feel like the other person is cheating or playing unfairly.
The story of the two doctors. Dr. Allison Carter and Dr. Frank Peterson were colleagues in the same medical practice. Both were excellent physicians, driven by a need for contribution. But their personal blueprints were wildly different, and it was causing constant friction. Allison's primary value was connection. Her core belief was, if I truly listen to my patients' stories and make them feel heard, then I am being a good doctor. As a result, she consistently ran behind schedule. Her appointments were long, empathetic conversations. Patients adored her, but the office staff and Frank were constantly frustrated by the scheduling chaos she created. Frank's primary value was efficiency. His core belief was, if I see every patient on time and provide a quick, accurate diagnosis, then I am being a good doctor. He was punctual, brilliant, and respected, but some patients found him abrupt and cold. He saw Allison's methods as inefficient and unprofessional. She saw his as clinical and uncaring. They weren't fighting about schedules. They were fighting about the very definition of a good doctor. The source of their conflict was a clash of personal blueprints. The breakthrough came when their practice manager, instead of just telling Allison to be faster and Frank to be nicer, sat them down to map out their values. She asked them a simple question. What does being a great doctor mean to you? When Allison described the importance of hearing a patient's story, Frank didn't hear an excuse for being late. He heard a deep commitment to patient care.
When Frank described the importance of respecting every patient's time by being punctual, Allison didn't hear a cold-hearted pragmatist. She heard a deep commitment to respect. They realized they were both on the same team, just with different rulebooks. This understanding allowed them to create a new blended system. They adjusted the schedule to give Allison longer appointment slots for complex cases, and Frank took on more of the acute, quick turnaround visits. They started referring each other to patients, recognizing that some patients needed Allison's empathetic ear, while others preferred Frank's direct efficiency. They stopped seeing each other as adversaries and started seeing each other as two different but equally valid specialists. They had successfully decoded each other's personal blueprint. How to uncover the blueprint? You don't need to be a therapist to get a glimpse of someone's blueprint. You just need to listen with a new level of attention.
Listen for value words. Pay attention to abstract nouns that are spoken with emotion. When someone says, the most important thing is family, or I just need more freedom, or I can't stand injustice, they are handing you a page from their blueprint. Listen for rules. Pay attention to if-then statements, generalizations, and shoulds. When someone says, you should always put your savings first, they are revealing a personal rule about how to achieve security. Ask, what's important about that? This is a powerful, calibrated question for drilling down to the core value. Them, I'm so angry that he missed the deadline. You, what's important to you about hitting deadlines? Them, it's a matter of respect for the team. The value is respect. Or, them, it's about predictability. I need to be able to count on people. The value is predictability or certainty. By understanding a person's blueprint, you can communicate with them in their own language. You can frame proposals in a way that honors their values. You can understand why they react the way they do. You can finally see them not as a generic human, but as the unique, complex, and fascinating individual they are. Chapter in Action, the Blueprint Quick Sketch. This exercise helps you create a working draft of someone's personal blueprint. Choose your subject. Pick someone you interact with regularly whom you would like to understand better. Become a value detective. For 1 week, your only mission is to listen for their value words. Keep a running list in a notebook or on your phone. Listen for words like freedom, security, family, fun, integrity, loyalty, achievement, growth, etc. Write them down whenever you hear them spoken with energy. Identify the top 2. At the end of the week, look at your list. Which 2 values seem to come up the most or with the most emotional intensity? These are likely their top-tier values. Formulate a rule hypothesis. Based on their behavior, what is one if-then rule you think they might have about one of these values? Example, if their top value is family, their rule might be, if I work late, then I am being a bad parent. Example, if their top value is achievement, their rule might be, if I'm not the best on my team, then I'm not valuable. Hold it lightly. This sketch is just a hypothesis. It's not the absolute truth, but it gives you a powerful new lens through which to view their actions. It allows you to ask, what if they're operating from this rule? This question alone can be the key to unlocking empathy and understanding. Chapter summary, key insights to remember. Go beyond universal needs. To truly understand someone, you must uncover their personal blueprint, their unique set of values and beliefs. Values are the compass. Values like freedom, security, loyalty are the core principles that guide a person's life. Listen for these words spoken with emotion. Beliefs are the rules. Beliefs are the if-then statements that dictate how a person must behave to honor their values and meet their needs. Conflict is often a blueprint clash. Many arguments are not about the surface topic, but about a fundamental collision between two different value systems or rulebooks. Decode the blueprint to connect. When you understand someone's values and rules, you can communicate in their language, honor what's important to them, and move from conflict to collaboration.
Chapter 9. The Empathy Bridge, From Decoding to Connecting. Dr. Chen was one of the most brilliant cardiologists in the state. He could read an EKG like a conductor reads a musical score, spotting subtle arrhythmias and blockages that others missed. His diagnostic skills were, by every objective measure, flawless. He was a master decoder of the human body. Yet, his patients consistently rated him as cold and dismissive, and a surprising number of them failed to follow his life-saving advice. He was particularly frustrated by a patient named Mr. Thompson, a kind-faced man in his 60s who was recovering from a heart attack. The case was straightforward. Mr. Thompson needed to take his medication, change his diet, and start a light exercise regimen. Surface. Mr. Thompson nods and agrees in the office. He says, "Yes, doctor." Subtext. He is quiet, his gaze is downcast, and his compliance is inconsistent. He forgets his medication. He doesn't show up for follow-up appointments. Source. Dr. Chen, being a brilliant analyst, even diagnosed the source. The man's wife had died a year prior. His need for connection was unmet, leaving him listless and unmotivated. His core value was independence, and he hated feeling like a sick old man who had to be managed. Dr. Chen had a perfect diagnosis of the entire SSS profile. So, in their next appointment, he laid out the facts with irrefutable logic. "Mr. Thompson," he said, pointing to a chart, "if you do not take this medication, your chance of a second, fatal heart attack increases by 60%. Your health is your responsibility. You need to do this." He presented the data. He appealed to Mr. Thompson's value of independence by using the word responsibility. He had decoded everything perfectly. 2 weeks later, Mr. Thompson was readmitted to the hospital with another cardiac event. Dr. Chen was baffled and frustrated. He had given his patient a perfect map, yet the man had refused to follow it. Dr. Chen's mistake is the most common and dangerous trap for a new meaning decoder. He had acquired a deep understanding of another human being and then stood on his own side of the chasm, shouting instructions across the gap. He had used his knowledge as a weapon, not as a tool for connection. Knowledge without empathy is sterile. Understanding without connection is a party trick. The entire purpose of decoding the surface, the subtext, and the source is not to be right. It is to earn the right to connect. And to do that, you must build a bridge. I call this the empathy bridge. Sympathy versus empathy, the view from the edge versus the journey into the whole. Before we can build this bridge, we must understand the profound difference between sympathy and empathy. This distinction, best articulated by researcher Dr. Brené Brown, is the foundation of all true connection. Sympathy is feeling for someone. It's standing at the edge of a deep, dark hole, looking down at a person who has fallen in and shouting, "Wow, that looks terrible down there. Hope you feel better soon." Sympathy is characterized by distance. It sees the other person's pain from a safe, sterile vantage point. Dr. Chen's response to Mr. Thompson was a classic sympathy response. "I see your problem, and here's what you should do about it." Empathy is feeling with someone. It's climbing down into the hole with them, sitting beside them in the darkness, and saying, "I don't know what to say, but I'm so glad you told me. You are not alone." Empathy is not about fixing. It's about presence. It's the brave willingness to connect with the emotion another person is experiencing. It's a choice to feel with them. The SSS Framework gives you a perfect map of the hole they're in. Empathy is having the courage to climb down and join them there for a moment. Building the bridge, the 3-step process.
The empathy bridge isn't built with steel and concrete, but with 3 intentional acts of communication. Step 1. Perspective taking, walking across the bridge. This is the cognitive part. It's the act of setting aside your own blueprint and making a genuine attempt to see the world through the other person's eyes. You've already done the hard work for this in chapters 7 and 8. You look at your SSS analysis and ask, given their need for, example, certainty, and their core value of family, and their belief that if I fail at work, I fail my family, how must this situation feel to them? This is an intellectual exercise, but it's the essential first step. You are mentally walking across the bridge to their side of the chasm. Step 2. Validation, acknowledging the view. This is the most critical and often misunderstood step. Validation is not agreement. You do not have to agree with a person's behavior, logic, or conclusion to validate the emotion behind it. Validation is simply the act of communicating your feelings make sense from your perspective. I get it.
It's the verbal equivalent of nodding and saying, the view from where you stand is real. Let's say a team member, Chloe, missed a critical deadline. A non-validating response, that's no excuse, the deadline was clear. This judges her reality. A validating response, it sounds like you were completely swamped and felt totally overwhelmed. That sounds incredibly stressful. This acknowledges her reality without condoning the missed deadline. Validation diffuses conflict instantly because it removes the need for the other person to defend their emotional state. Once their feeling is validated, they are far more open to problem solving. Step 3. Communicating understanding, sending a signal back. This is where you verbally hand them the proof that you've made the journey. You use a label, a summary, or a statement that shows you've not only seen their perspective, but felt a piece of it. It sounds like you're feeling trapped. I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been. So what you're saying is that you felt completely ignored in that meeting. That makes sense why you'd be so angry. This final step closes the loop. It proves that their message has been received, not just the words, but the emotional core of it. Dr. Chen builds a bridge. A senior nurse, seeing Dr. Chen's frustration with Mr. Thompson, gave him some unconventional advice. Stop trying to manage his heart, she said. Start trying to understand his grief. It clicked. Dr. Chen realized he had never built the bridge. In his next meeting with Mr. Thompson, he tried a different approach. He put the chart down. Dr. Chen, step 1, perspective taking. He thought about Mr. Thompson's blueprint, a need for connection, a value of independence, and a deep sense of loss. Dr. Chen, steps 2 and 3, validation and communication. Mr. Thompson, he began, his voice softer. I've been looking at your chart, but I get the feeling I've been missing the most important part of the story. It seems like since your wife passed, doing all of this on your own must feel incredibly overwhelming and lonely. Mr. Thompson looked up, his eyes glassy. It was the first time Dr. Chen had seen a flicker of life in them. He simply nodded, unable to speak. Dr. Chen climbing down into the hole. I can't imagine how hard it must be to come home to an empty house and then have to worry about all these pills and diets. It must feel like you've lost your old life completely.
Mr. Thompson finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. You're the first person who said that, he whispered. Everyone just tells me what to do. They don't get it. I feel like a ghost. In that moment, everything changed. They weren't doctor and patient anymore. They were two human beings sitting together in a moment of shared understanding. They spent the next 20 minutes talking not about medication, but about Mr. Thompson's wife, his garden, and his fear of losing his independence. At the end of the conversation, Dr. Chen said,
I know you value your independence more than anything. Let's work together to create a plan that you are in complete control of, one that helps you stay strong enough to live in your own house on your own terms for a very long time. Mr. Thompson didn't just comply with the plan after that. He co-authored it. He became an active participant in his own health because he finally felt seen, heard, and understood. Dr. Chan had used his diagnostic skill not just to identify the problem, but to build an empathy bridge, and that connection became the most powerful medicine of all. Chapter in action: the empathy rehearsal. This week, you will use your new skills to repair a past conversational failure. Recall a disconnect. Think of a recent conversation that went poorly. An argument, a misunderstanding, a moment where you failed to connect with someone important. Perform the SSS autopsy. Analyze the situation using the full SSS framework. What was the surface behavior? What was the subtext you missed? What was their core need and the values and beliefs from their blueprint that were at play? Write it down. Build a bridge in your mind. Now, based on your analysis, write out what an empathetic response would have looked like. Use the 3-step process. Perspective taking. Write one sentence describing their reality. From their perspective, they felt validation. Write a validating statement. It makes sense that you felt. Communication. Write the exact words you wish you had said. It sounds like you were feeling, or I can see how you would feel. Rehearse the scene. Say the words out loud. Feel what it's like to offer empathy instead of judgment. This exercise isn't about dwelling on regret. It's about reprogramming your automatic response. By rehearsing empathy, you make it more accessible and more likely to be your default reaction in the next real-life situation.
Chapter summary. Key insights to remember. Decoding is not enough. The goal of understanding is not to be right, it is to connect. Knowledge without empathy is a tool for manipulation, not connection. Empathy is feeling with, not for. Sympathy is looking down from a safe distance. Empathy is the courageous choice to climb down into the hole with someone and share their emotional space. The empathy bridge is a 3-step process. 1. Perspective taking, understanding their blueprint. 2. Validation, acknowledging their feeling as real. 3. Communicating understanding, showing them you get it. Validation is not agreement. You can validate someone's feelings without condoning their actions. Acknowledging their emotional reality is the fastest way to defuse conflict. Connection is the ultimate medicine. True influence, trust, and collaboration are only possible after you have built the empathy bridge. It is the crucial final step that turns insight into impact.
Chapter 10. The SSS Method in Action. Navigating high-stakes conversations. We've all felt it. The knot in the stomach before asking for a raise. The dry mouth before giving difficult feedback to a colleague. The racing heart before sitting down with a family member to resolve a painful conflict. High-stakes conversations are the championship games of communication. The outcome can alter the course of our careers, our relationships, and our lives. For most of us, entering these conversations feels like walking a tightrope across a canyon without a net. We improvise, we get emotional, we react, and we hope we don't fall. But what if you had a net? What if you had a balancing pole? What if you could walk into any crucial conversation not with fear and improvisation, but with a clear strategy, a deep understanding of the person across from you, and a set of tools to navigate any twist or turn? This is where the SSS method graduates from a diagnostic tool to a strategic playbook. By applying the entire framework, from decoding the surface to building the empathy bridge, you can transform the most intimidating conversations into opportunities for connection and mutual success. The process can be broken down into 3 distinct phases. Phase 1, the preparation, the blueprint. Phase 2, the engagement,
the bridge. Phase 3, the review, the compass. To see how this works, let's follow the story of Alicia, a talented marketing manager who is about to walk the tightrope. She believes she is long overdue for a promotion to director, but her boss, a data-obsessed VP named Mr. Kincaid, has never brought it up. Phase 1, the preparation, the blueprint. The outcome of a high-stakes conversation is often decided before a single word is spoken. The amateur focuses on what they will say. The professional focuses on what they must first understand. This is where Alicia does her SSS homework. Her goal is to create a detailed blueprint of Mr. Kincaid. Alicia's SSS analysis of Mr. Kincaid. Surface, the what. Body language, punctual to every meeting, sits upright, minimal gestures. Vocal cues, speaks in a measured, even tone, rarely raises his voice. Language. Emails are formal, data-driven, and to the point. He uses words like efficiency, metrics, and ROI. Subtext, the why behind the what. He rarely praises effort, only documented results. The subtext is that trying hard doesn't count, only winning does.
When budgets are discussed, his voice gets even quieter, and he hesitates before committing. The subtext is deep fiscal caution. He hesitates to delegate mission-critical tasks, often checking in multiple times. The subtext is a fear of losing control and a reluctance to trust. Source, the deep why. Core needs. His primary driver is certainty. He hates surprises, ambiguity, and risk. He needs to know that things are under control and predictable. His secondary need is significance, derived from his team's flawless execution and data-backed successes. Personal blueprint, values/beliefs. His number one value is efficiency. His core belief, which Alicia has heard him say in different ways, is, if it's not supported by data, it's just an opinion. Crafting the strategy. Based on this blueprint, Alicia realizes her initial plan to open with, "I feel I've earned a promotion," would be a disaster. It's based on her feelings, not his data. It's a bid for her significance, not an appeal to his need for certainty. She crafts a new opening statement designed specifically for Mr. Kincaid's blueprint. Mr. Kincaid, I've scheduled this meeting to present a data-driven case for how my role can provide a greater ROI to the department. I'd like to review my key metrics from the past year and propose a structural change that will increase our team's efficiency by an estimated 15%. She has translated her personal goal into his native language. She has prepared a one-page summary with charts and metrics. She has anticipated his need for certainty by framing her promotion not as a cost, but as an investment in efficiency. Phase 2, the engagement, the bridge. This is the live event. Armed with her blueprint, Alicia walks into Mr. Kincaid's office. He is looking at his screen, and his posture is rigid. Alicia delivers her data-driven opening. He listens intently, looking at her one-page summary. He seems impressed. But then comes the first obstacle. "The work is excellent, Alicia," he says, his tone flat. "But the timing for a new director-level position isn't right. The budget is frozen." The old Alicia would have felt her stomach drop. She would have gotten defensive or just given up. The new Alicia sees this not as a rejection, but as the first piece of subtext to decode. Alicia, using a mirror. "The budget is frozen?" Mr. Kincaid, "Yes. We're not creating any new roles until at least Q4.
Alicia, using a label. "It sounds like adding any new headcount right now is a major concern." Mr. Kincaid, "It is. I can't go to my boss asking for more money." Here's the key moment. Alicia senses the budget is only part of the story. His real fear is the risk and hassle of a structural change. She decides to build an empathy bridge to his deeper need for certainty. "Alicia, I completely understand. The last thing I'd want is to put you in a difficult position or create any instability on the team. It makes perfect sense that maintaining budget integrity and operational stability is the top priority." She has validated his reality. Mr. Kincaid's posture softens slightly. He leans back in his chair. The bridge is built. Now she can walk across it. Alicia, using a calibrated question. My proposal isn't about creating a new role, but about restructuring my current one to better reflect the work I'm already doing. What aspects of this transition would cause the most concern from a logistical standpoint? The question is brilliant. It reframes the problem and invites him to collaborate. Mr. Kincaid, my main concern would be who handles your current projects. The launch of the new campaign is critical. I can't risk that slipping. Bingo. Alicia has reached the true source of his hesitation. It isn't just money. It's his fear of disrupting a critical project, a direct threat to his need for certainty. Because she anticipated this in her preparation, she is ready. I anticipated that, she says calmly, which is why I've already drafted a 90-day transition plan, including a proposal to train Daniel to take over my current responsibilities. His metrics show he's ready for the next step. She has addressed his fear with data and a concrete plan. She has made it easy for him to say yes. Phase 3, the review, the compass. The conversation concludes. Mr. Kincaid, impressed by her preparation and foresight, agrees to approve the promotion, effective the start of the next quarter, contingent on the success of her transition plan. It's a huge win, but Alicia's work isn't done. Later that day, she takes 10 minutes to review the conversation. What worked? My preparation was essential. The SSS blueprint of Kincaid was spot on. The data-driven opening got his attention. Validating his concern about stability was the turning point. What could I improve? I felt a moment of panic when he first said no.
I need to practice staying calm and curious in that first moment of resistance. What did I learn? His deepest fear wasn't about money, but about operational risk. This is a key piece of data for all future interactions with him. This review process turns a single conversation into a masterclass. Even if the answer had been a firm no, the review would have transformed the experience from a failure into valuable intelligence, making her next attempt that much stronger. The high-stakes conversation checklist. Use this checklist to prepare for your next crucial conversation. Phase 1, the preparation, the blueprint. Define your goal. What is the single primary outcome you want from this conversation? Perform an SSS analysis. Surface. What are their objective behaviors, vocal patterns, and language habits? Subtext. What are the unspoken messages you've noticed in past interactions? Source. What are their likely top 1 to 2 universal needs? What are their core values and if-then beliefs? Anticipate objections. Based on their blueprint, what are the top 3 reasons they might say no? Prepare your response. For each objection, prepare a potential solution or counterpoint. Craft your opening. Write a 1 to 2 sentence opening that aligns with their values and needs, not just your own. Phase 2, the engagement, the bridge. Stay curious, not defensive. When faced with resistance, your first thought should be, that's interesting, not that's wrong. Use your tools. Label their emotions. It seems like. Mirror their key words to encourage elaboration. Ask calibrated questions, what or how, to invite collaboration. Build the empathy bridge. Before you propose your solution, validate their concern. I understand why that's a worry, or it makes sense that you would feel that way. Phase 3, the review, the compass. Debrief promptly. Within 24 hours, take 10 minutes to reflect. Analyze what worked. What did you do well? Analyze what didn't. Where did you feel stuck or unprepared? Identify key learnings. What did you learn about their blueprint that you can use in the future? This structured approach doesn't guarantee you'll always get exactly what you want, but it guarantees you will never walk into a high-stakes conversation unprepared again. It replaces fear with strategy, anxiety with curiosity, and conflict with the potential for genuine connection.
Chapter 11. Digital Body Language, Decoding the Virtual World. The message popped up on David's screen at 4:53 p.m. on a Friday. It was from his new boss, Maria, the head of the company's European division. They were collaborating on a time-sensitive global project, and David had just sent her the final draft of a major report. He held his breath. He had worked all week on this, pulling extra hours to get it right. Maria's reply was a single sentence. I've reviewed the document. That was it. No thanks,
No good work, no exclamation point, just a period. A cold, hard, definitive period. David's mind exploded with a torrent of negative self-talk. She hates it. The period is a sign of anger. It's so blunt. I must have missed something huge. She thinks I'm incompetent. My career here is over. He spent the entire weekend in a state of low-grade panic, rereading the report, searching for the fatal flaw he must have overlooked. He barely slept. On Monday morning, he logged into his email with a sense of dread, expecting a summons to a virtual execution. Instead, he saw a message Maria had sent to the entire global team. Subject: incredible work on the Q3 report. Team, I want to give a huge thank you to David for his outstanding work on the Q3 report. He delivered a clear, insightful, and data-rich document under a tight deadline that will be invaluable for our strategy going forward. Great job. David stared at the screen, utterly bewildered. He had just lived through 48 hours of self-inflicted misery based on his interpretation of a single punctuation mark. Welcome to the confusing, anxiety-inducing, and utterly critical world of digital body language. The SSS Framework was built on the rich data of face-to-face human interaction. But what happens when the body disappears? What happens when the voice goes silent? In a world of emails, texts, and instant messages, we are communicating more than ever, but we are doing it with a fraction of the data. We have lost the nonverbal cues, the posture, the tone of voice, the micro-expressions that our brains have relied on for millennia to decode meaning. This absence of data creates a vacuum, and our anxious minds rush to fill that vacuum with the worst possible assumptions. A delayed reply becomes a sign of anger. A brief message means someone is being dismissive. A period becomes a symbol of rage. To thrive in the modern workplace and maintain healthy digital relationships, we must learn to adapt.
We can't see the body, but we can learn to read the new set of signals, the subtle, powerful cues that make up a person's digital persona. We need to learn how to decode the virtual world. The 4 dimensions of digital body language. Drawing from the pioneering work of researcher Erica Dahlin, we can adapt our SSS lens to focus on 4 key dimensions of digital communication. For each dimension, the core principle remains the same. First, establish a person's baseline, then look for deviations. 1. Timing and pacing. In the physical world, we notice the rhythm of a conversation. In the digital world, the rhythm is defined by response time. The baseline. How quickly does this person normally respond? Is your boss someone who replies within minutes or someone who clears their inbox twice a day? Is your friend a rapid-fire texter or a once-a-day replier? Know their norm. The deviation. A sudden change in this rhythm is the signal. If your normally fast-responding colleague takes 2 days to reply to a specific request, that delay is the message. It might signal they are overwhelmed, avoiding the question, or that the topic is a low priority. Conversely, if a normally slow-to-respond client replies instantly to a proposal, it signals high engagement and interest. A late-night or weekend email from someone who never works off hours is a major indicator of urgency or anxiety. 2. Punctuation and formatting. Punctuation has become the new tone of voice. Formatting is the new posture. The baseline. Does this person use exclamation points like confetti? Or are they a minimalist who sticks to proper grammar? Do they write in long, detailed paragraphs or short, choppy sentences? Do they use bolding and italics to create emphasis? The deviation. This is where David went wrong. He judged Maria's period against his own baseline, not hers. He later realized that Maria, a former lawyer, was a punctuation minimalist. For her, a period was just a period. An exclamation point from her was the equivalent of a standing ovation. If a normally effusive, emoji-using friend sends you a one-word text with a period, that deviation is a massive emotional signal. If your boss, who normally writes formal paragraphs, sends a one-line email in all caps, that's a clear sign of urgency or anger. 3. Medium and formality. The choice of how to communicate is often more important than the message itself. The baseline. What is your team's default communication channel? Is it a chaotic Slack channel, formal email, or scheduled video calls? The deviation is a sudden shift in the medium, is a powerful subtextual clue. If a conflict is brewing in a group chat and one person says, "I'm calling you," they are escalating the issue to a higher bandwidth, more serious channel. If your boss, with whom you normally communicate via email, suddenly sends you a text message, it signals high urgency. A request for a video call to discuss something that could have been an email often means the topic is sensitive and requires the extra data of visual cues. 4. Word choice and tone. While we lose the sound of the voice, we can still analyze the digital tone embedded in language. The baseline. Is this person's language typically warm and personal, like, "Hi team, hope you're having a great week," or direct and transactional, like, "See below, action required"? The deviation. A shift in warmth is a key indicator. If your normally friendly colleague sends you a blunt, impersonal email, it can signal they are stressed, annoyed, or simply too busy. Pay attention to hedging words. A message that says, "This is a pretty good start," is very different from "this is a great start." The word pretty is the subtext, signaling significant room for improvement. The clarity compass. When in doubt, escalate. The fundamental problem with digital communication is ambiguity. Because we have less data, our potential for misinterpretation skyrockets. The single most important rule for navigating this world is this: if a digital interaction creates confusion, anxiety, or conflict, your immediate goal is to move up the communication ladder to a channel with more data. Think of communication channels as a ladder of clarity. Top rung, most data, in-person conversation. Second rung, video call. Third rung, phone call. Fourth rung, email or formal message. Bottom rung, least data, text, or instant message. When David was agonizing over Maria's email, he had a choice. He could stay on the bottom rungs, wallowing in ambiguity, or he could have sought more data. He could have replied, "Thanks for the review. What are the key next steps I should focus on?" A calibrated question via email. Or, even better, he could have suggested escalating. "Glad you had a chance to see it. Have time for a quick 5-minute call Monday morning to discuss?" Don't use a low-data channel to solve a high-emotion problem. Never try to resolve a conflict over text message.
Don't provide nuanced critical feedback in a Slack channel. When the emotional stakes are high, climb the ladder. The extra data from seeing a face or hearing a tone of voice can resolve in minutes what could fester for days in the ambiguous world of text. Chapter in action: your digital baseline audit. This week, you will become an anthropologist of your own virtual world. Your goal is to consciously define the digital baselines for the most important people you communicate with. Choose 3 key contacts. Pick 3 people whose digital communication matters to you: your boss, a key client, your partner, or a close friend. Create their digital blueprint. For each person, spend a few minutes scrolling through your past emails and texts. Analyze their patterns across the 4 dimensions and jot down their baseline. Timing? What is their average response time? Punctuation or formatting? Are they an emoji person, an exclamation point user, a formal paragraph writer? Medium. What is their default channel for different types of conversations? Tone. Is their language typically warm, formal, direct, or humorous? Spot a recent deviation. Now, think back over the last month. Can you recall a digital message from them that made you feel anxious or confused? Look at that message again through the lens of their established baseline. Reevaluate your interpretation. Was it a true deviation from their norm, or were you, like David, judging their message based on your own blueprint? This audit will help you separate real signals from imagined slights. This exercise will dramatically reduce your digital anxiety.
By building a conscious library of others' digital habits, you immunize yourself against the reflexive tendency to fill the communication vacuum with your own fears. You learn to see their digital world as it is, not as you imagine it to be. Chapter Summary. Key insights to remember. Digital communication creates a data vacuum. The absence of nonverbal cues leads to ambiguity, and our brains tend to fill that ambiguity with negative assumptions. Adapt the SSS Framework. To decode the virtual world, focus on the 4 dimensions of digital body language: timing, punctuation or formatting, medium, and word choice. Baseline plus deviation still rules. Don't judge a digital message in isolation. Understand a person's normal digital habits, their baseline, and look for significant changes, the deviation. The clarity compass. When in doubt, escalate. If a digital conversation becomes ambiguous, emotional, or confusing, move it to a channel with more data, e.g. from text to a phone call or email to a video call. Assume good intent, but then seek clarity. The best default stance is to assume a confusing message was not sent with ill intent, but to then take proactive steps to get the clarity you need rather than suffering in silence.
Chapter 12. The Virtuous Cycle. How Deep Understanding Changes Everything. There is a concept in engineering and economics called a virtuous cycle. It's a chain of events where each positive outcome reinforces the next, creating a self-perpetuating loop of growth and improvement. Think of it as a snowball of success rolling downhill, getting bigger and faster with every rotation. A successful product leads to more revenue, which funds better research, which creates an even better product, which leads to even more revenue. In our human lives, we often find ourselves trapped in the opposite, a vicious cycle. A miscommunication leads to distrust, which leads to avoidance, which leads to further miscommunication, creating a downward spiral of frustration and isolation. We feel stuck, and we don't know how to reverse the momentum. The SSS Framework, this entire journey, from decoding the surface to building the empathy bridge, is more than just a set of communication techniques. It is the key to intentionally breaking the vicious cycles in your life and igniting a powerful, life-altering, virtuous cycle of human connection. This final chapter is about zooming out. It's about seeing how the daily practice of deep understanding doesn't just improve a single conversation or a single relationship. It fundamentally changes the entire operating system of your life. The first domino, from judgment to curiosity. The entire cycle begins with a single, simple shift in your mindset. It's the decision we made back in Chapter 1 to stop being a mind reader and start being a meaning decoder. This is the first domino. Before learning this framework, your default reaction to confusing or frustrating behavior might have been judgment. He's so arrogant. She's being irrational. They just don't care. Judgment is a dead end. It shuts down learning, closes off connection, and provides the initial push for a vicious cycle. The SSS Framework, this entire journey, from decoding the surface to building the empathy bridge, gives you a new default reaction: curiosity. He's challenging my idea. I wonder which of his core needs this behavior is trying to meet. Is it significance? Her tone of voice is filled with emotion, even though her words are calm. I wonder what's happening in the subtext. They didn't respond to my email. I wonder if that's a deviation from their digital baseline. Curiosity is an engine of possibility. It opens the door to understanding. This shift, practiced daily, is the spark that ignites the entire virtuous cycle.
The virtuous cycle in motion. Once curiosity becomes your habit, the cycle begins to turn and the momentum builds with each step. Deep understanding leads to empathy.
When you move from judging a person's behavior to decoding the source, their needs, values, and beliefs, it becomes nearly impossible not to feel a sense of empathy. You see the universal human struggling within them. You understand the why behind their what. That difficult colleague is no longer just a jerk. They are a person with a deep, unmet need for certainty. Your quiet partner isn't just withdrawn. They are someone whose core value of connection has been bruised. Empathy leads to trust. Empathy is the soil in which trust grows. When people feel that you're genuinely trying to understand their world, not just win an argument, they let their guard down. The empathy bridge you build in a single conversation becomes a permanent fixture. They know you are a safe harbor. Trust is the currency of all great relationships, and you have just discovered how to mint it on demand. Trust leads to influence. This is not the cheap influence of manipulation. It is the profound influence that comes from being a trusted advisor. Once someone trusts that you understand them and have their best interests at heart, they become remarkably open to your ideas. The walls of resistance crumble. People want to work with you, collaborate with you, and follow your lead because they know you see them as a person, not a pawn. Influence leads to better outcomes. With this new level of trust and influence, everything becomes easier. Negotiations that used to be battles become collaborative problem-solving sessions. Projects that were stalled by infighting move forward with a new sense of shared purpose. Difficult family conversations become opportunities for healing. You get the promotion, you close the deal, you repair the relationship, not because you outmaneuvered anyone, but because you out-understood them. Better outcomes lead to deeper connection. As you achieve these positive outcomes together, you build a history of success. Your relationships are no longer defined by a series of conflicts, but by a series of mutual wins. This deepens your sense of connection to the people around you, reinforcing their trust and your empathy. The cycle begins anew, but this time from a higher, stronger starting point. This isn't a theoretical model. It's a description of a lived reality. Think back to Paul and his problem employee, Kevin. The vicious cycle of judgment and defiance was pushing them toward termination. By shifting to curiosity, Paul ignited a virtuous cycle. His understanding led to empathy, which allowed him to build trust. His newfound trust gave him the influence to channel Kevin's needs productively, which led to a better outcome for the team. This success deepened their connection, turning an adversary into a powerful ally. The most important blueprint you will ever decode. There is one final unexpected consequence of this entire journey. In learning to decode the world around you, you will inevitably learn to decode yourself. As you start to analyze others' needs, you will be forced to ask, what are my primary needs? As you listen for their core values, you will have to wonder, what are my most important values? As you build empathy bridges to others, you will learn how to build one for yourself, giving yourself grace instead of judgment. You will start to notice your own surface behaviors, hear the subtext in your own voice, and understand the source of your own reactions. You will realize that the times you are most judgmental of others are often the times you are most insecure about yourself. You will see that your frustration with a colleague's lack of efficiency is a reflection of your own deep need for certainty and trust. To read anyone's mind was always a Trojan horse. The true gift of this journey is not just seeing into the minds of others, but finally, with breathtaking clarity, seeing into your own. This self-knowledge is the ultimate foundation for a life of purpose, confidence, and connection. Your first conversation. A book can give you a map, but it cannot take the journey for you. The SSS Framework is not an intellectual curiosity to be placed on a shelf. It is a set of tools meant to be used. They will feel clumsy at first, like learning a new language or a musical instrument. You will make mistakes. You will misinterpret a signal. You will build a clumsy bridge. That's okay. The goal is not perfection. It is practice. Your practice begins now with the next conversation you have. It might be with the barista who serves you coffee. Instead of just transacting, make eye contact and truly listen to the sound of their voice. Is it tired? Cheerful? Stressed? It might be with your partner tonight. When they talk about their day, listen for the emotional bid beneath the words.
It might be with yourself. The next time you feel a surge of frustration, pause and ask with genuine curiosity, what need of mine is not being met right now? This is how the virtuous cycle starts, not with a grand gesture, but with a small, conscious act of curiosity. It's a choice you make in a single moment, and then another, and another. And in the space created by those choices, a new way of being in the world begins to grow. A life richer in understanding, deeper in connection, and more profound in its impact than you ever thought possible. The ability to truly understand another human being is the most important skill you were never taught. Today, your real education begins. The journey is yours to take. The world is waiting to be understood.